Hi there. In this week's edition of The Wrap, we're looking at the big surprises that rock coalition governments this week and what to make of it all. We also explain the war raging around Eskom CEO André Ruyter, plus our guide to surviving and capitalizing on Black Friday. And what's the wrap without a little celebrity update? So we've got that just for you too. So let's dive into your weekly update of empowering and easy to understand news, brought to you by Verashni Pillay and the explain.co.za team. It's time for your weekly wrap of this week's top stories, brought to you by explain.co.za. Simple news summaries for busy people. Our take. Today is Thanksgiving in the US, and as is tradition, Americans will rush to stores tomorrow to get cheap deals on nearly everything. It's called Black Friday, and it marks the beginning of the shopping for the festive season. It became a thing in South Africa around 2014 and has grown steadily here in the past few years. But should you celebrate this particular informal holiday or lock yourself indoors and buy nothing? The problem is that many retailers appear to escalate prices and drop them just ahead of Black Friday to create the illusion of a discount. That means you're effectively paying the same initial price. Sneaky, right? To test the theory, Times Live did an investigation using a tool called Serval Tracker, which compares the online retailer Takealot's prices over a period of time. It found that although prices drop around late October, they were marked up previously and, in most cases, were much lower earlier in the year. That doesn't mean you should stay away from Black Friday completely. Most of us are cash-strapped and could really do with a discount on necessities or luxury items. But before you get caught up in the frenzy, do try the following to ensure that you spend responsibly. Number 1, make a list of things that you need and want, then scour through adverts to compare prices so that when the day comes, you know exactly where to go and what it is to buy. Don't get carried away. Stick to the items that you have on your list. And number 2, some retailers running specials at the start of the month, so keep an eye for specials today to avoid the rush tomorrow. Some retailers will keep some of these specials running on Cyber Monday too. And number 3, we know the festive season puts you in a good mood to give, but don't overspend. You don't want to amass unnecessary debt. One tip is to use cash instead of a credit card or a store card, so you can actually see how much you're spending. Either way, draw up a budget beforehand and
the big story.
Welcome to South Africa's coalition era. Is your head spinning around from the week's fast-moving coalition news? Well, don't worry, we've got the summary you need. To recap, the 1st November local government elections that left nearly 70 municipalities hung with no outright winner. Tuesday was the deadline for parties to finalize coalition, and as you might know, things went down to the wire in several cities. The DA had a good day at the office, securing 3 metros, the city of Johannesburg, Ekurhuleni, and the city of Tshwane in Gauteng. It also retained an outright majority in Cape Town, which it has run since 2009. The party backed Joburg thanks to voters from Action SA and the EFF, but this isn't a start of a beautiful coalition friendship. Both Action SA and the EFF have made it clear that they only back the DA to snatch away power from the ANC. The country's economic hub has the first sitting woman mayor, Dr. Mpho Phalatse from the DA, a doctor who specializes in public health. She joined the DA in 2016 as a councillor and served as MMC under Action SA leader Malema and Mashaba while he was still a DA member. Her previous roles mean Phalatse has reputable experience in public administration. In Ekurhuleni, the DA's Tanya Campbell secured 116 votes to the incumbent Mzwandile Masina of the ANC. Masina only got 105 votes and had to surrender the mayoral chain. The ANC has governed in Ekurhuleni since 1994, so this was bound to sting a little. There was more hurt to come. Action SA's Mashaba warned that the ANC was in for more pain in the Tshwane Metro, and that's exactly what happened. The DA's Randall Williams, who became mayor in 2020, was re-elected in a clean sweep after the ANC declined to nominate a mayoral candidate of its own. Awkward. Things went smoothly for the ANC in the Eastern Cape. It retained the Buffalo City Metro, and Eugene Johnson became the mayor in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro, pipping the DA, the mayoral chain, by 1 vote. Johnson is only the Metro's second woman mayor and has more than 20 years' experience in governance. The ANC also held on to the Mangaung Metro in the Free State. It became dangerously close to losing eThekwini, Durban and the surrounds, but managed to clinch the Metro with the help of smaller parties. The DA was supported by the EFF and the IFP in its unsuccessful bid for power. So, who emerged victorious in this latest edition of Survivor Democracy? The EFF blindsided almost everyone by supporting the DA, but given that two parties are polar opposites who know how long the relationship, a flirtation rather than a formal coalition, remember, might last. Publicly, the senior ANC figures are acting like high school rugby jock who's scared to show his feelings. Transport Minister and party elections head Fikile Mbalula spent some quality time on Twitter complaining about coalitions. Behind the scenes, though, it's likely that many party bigwigs are genuinely worried about this week's changes and what they mean for its chances in the 2024 elections. Perhaps it's too much to hope that we, the voters, might be the real winners, but let's see if strangely bedfellows in various municipalities surprise us pleasantly by improving service delivery and the quality of life for residents they elected to serve.
The briefs.
We've earlier compared COVID to everyone's least favorite uncle, drunk uncle, and unfortunately we have to do it again. After a relatively quiet few months, it's barged in a noisily fashion and reminded us of its unrelenting presence, just in time for the COVID festive season rather. Cases are on the rise again in South Africa, and they've passed the 1,000 mark in this week, and just when we were tired of promised surprises, here's another. A new super variant that has a high number of mutations, the variant B11529, was detected in South Africa in mid-November and is prevalent in Gauteng, the health department said during a briefing today. The variant has also been identified in Botswana and Hong Kong. There's also still a lot that scientists are yet to learn, but it does pose a major concern in the fourth wave that's expected to hit around December. We aren't the exception when it comes to rising cases. Germany, Austria, and the Netherlands are also reintroducing lockdown measures, while the Americas, particularly the United States of America and Canada, are preparing for a new wave of infections. We should take lessons and ramp up our protective measures before things get intense. And if you haven't had already, please go get vaccinated. You don't want to be that one person that everyone avoids at the family braai. Speaking of vaccines, South Africa still hasn't reached a conclusion on whether or not to make vaccines mandatory, but public health and legal experts have weighed in. They say the government is legally obliged to do what it can to protect our health, meaning that making vaccines mandatory would not undermine the Constitution. Some legal experts have said that as employees return to work, the employer's discretion is not enough to determine if the workplace is safe, so more legislation needs to be put in place. Obviously, you won't be pinned down to take it, but the overall consensus is that mandatory vaccines are in the interest of the public safety. If we go this route, we'll be following countries like Italy, France, and Greece. Look, we're all tired of COVID-19 ruling our lives. It's been nearly 2 years of the pandemic pandemonium, but take this to heart. Scientists predict that by the end of 2022, if all goes well with vaccinations and we're able to preempt the spread of new variants, COVID-19 will become endemic. meaning it will just be another one of those flus, like the common flu and the common cold. If it's still a pandemic now because it's prevalent, but as The Economist reported, pandemics don't go away, they simply fade. Boy, are we looking forward to the day. And Grammy nomination nod goes to Black Coffee for South Africa. Accomplished South African artist and DJ Nkosinati Maphumulo, you know him as Black Coffee, has made a big name for himself around the world. This week, he capped off an astonishing few years with a Grammy nomination. He has been nominated for Best Electric Dance and Electric Album category for his album Subconsciously, which marked something of a departure from SA House sounds and was released earlier this year to international acclaim. Music website Pitchfork has written of Maphumulo, saying that in the past decade, as an international pop star pivoted to African beats and rhythms in search of inspiration with a global reach, Black Coffee has found a heightened sense of visibility. He's hugely successful, with a number of international awards already under his belt. He's also performed at international festivals like Coachella and collaborations with international stars such as Drake, Usher, David Guetta, and Diplo. He's not universally loved, mind you. He was criticized for performing in Israel in 2018, same WhatsApp group as Miss Essay, and his ex-wife Mbali Mhlotshwa has accused him of domestic violence, allegations he staunchly denies. If Black Coffee bags the Grammy on the 31st of January 2022, he'll join such luminaries as Miriam Makeba and South African Gospel Choir on the SA winners list. Not a fan of beer, but keen for a quaff of other kinds of booze, if a deal between Dutch brewing company Heineken and other local company Distell goes through, your perhaps slightly slurred dreams may come true with a brand new brand of wine, whiskey and brand on SA shelves. Distell is the maker of Savannah, Hunter's Dry and JC LaRue. Heineken announced this week its decision to buy the local company earlier this month after recognizing that South Africa has a rather vibrant alcohol market. You know it's true, and we will use the opportunity to expand its brand beyond beer and cider. The deal, which could also see Heineken buying Namibian breweries, which makes Windhoek beer, will not only create growth opportunities within African markets, Ruyter reported, but will also offer consumers more variety. If you're wondering whether this acquisition may stifle competition in the market, analysts say it's not a huge concern. Well, cheers to that. Speaking of alcohol, remember when SARS introduced measures to prevent foreign diplomats from buying copious amounts of duty-free alcohol and tobacco from retailers? In June, South Africa expelled several diplomats from Malawi and Lesotho, accusing them of selling these for profits. 4 retailers based around the area of Pretoria, where the diplomats were based, who were making big bucks selling duty-free products, took the decision to court. The judge agreed with them that the decision to limit alcohol and tobacco sales was made arbitrarily and irrationally. The Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations allows DIRCO and SARS to limit the amount of alcohol and tobacco products diplomats could buy as long as they follow due process, the judge ruled. It's a bummer that an investigation that found that the practice cost our economy nearly 100 million a month. SARS says it's studying its opinion and it can appeal the ruling. And Mandashe goes to war with the Ruyter over coal. Is Eskom CEO André a hero trying to fix our broken utility, or a villain responsible for plunging us into the repeated load shedding? It depends who you talk to, but one thing is clear: there's a battle raging around him. There's 3 main issues. 1, there's a blame game. De Ruyter's critics point to a report by the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research showing that 2020 was the worst load shedding year since 2017 under De Ruyter. Eskom countered that that it's because of maintenance was so badly neglected. The Ruyter also made allegations of sabotage at the Letabo power station and released photos last week with proof and calling it an attack against him and his management, the City Press reported. He has called on law enforcement to intervene. There's also the war on renewable energy. The Ruyter and his boss, Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan, want government to move to renewables today. Mineral Resources and Energy Minister Gwede Mantashe, not so much. The pushback against ditching coal is a noble one on one hand, protecting vulnerable workers and communities reliant on the coal industry, but like the Witbank Middelburg industrial complex. But on the other hand, are the vested interests who make loads of money legally and in corrupt ways from non-renewable energy sources. For example, Mantashe accused the Ruyter of failing to sign emergency power contracts to avoid load shedding, but he's basically pushing the controversial carpool power company we told you about being made again we told you about before, who are in court with allegations of corruption being made against Mantashe's department. And there's also the 130 billion climate funding deal. Mantashe is not impressed by the breakthrough deal that SA landed at the recent Global Climate Conference. In exchange for phasing out our coal dependence and even snubbed a meeting with the funders. The funding isn't without its issues. A report by Investec shows that approximately 130 billion fall short of the 180 billion needed to upgrade Eskom's network to switch to renewable resources, and private power suppliers, our greatest hope after coal, won't spend a cent till our country has the full amount in hand to ensure the power they produce can actually be connected. But that doesn't mean Mantashe is right either. He's continuing his plans to build 2 small coal-fired power stations, vowing to fight off court action by activists, saying it's a test of clean coal technology. The upshot? The battle towards SA's move to green future is in full force. It's complex with genuine concerns plus plenty of dodgy maneuverings not to be trusted. Expect to hear a lot more about this as we transition. We'll be sure to keep guiding you through it all. And Adele changes the game. We all have that one teacher who has completely changed our lives. For Adele, it was her English teacher, Miss MacDonald, who managed to inspire a young Adele in the just 1 year she taught her. During a performance at the London Palladium on Sunday night, Adele burst into tears when she was surprised with a reunion with Mr. MacDonald. "You really did change my life," said Adele, adding, "I've still got all my books, all my books from when you were my teacher." A teary Adele explained that Ms. MacDonald ignited her passion about writing and English literature and inspired her career as a songwriter. Since releasing her latest album, 30, Adele has made big moves in the music industry. Last week, she tweeted that her only wish for the industry was for the global streaming giant Spotify to remove its shuffle feature. She tweeted, "We don't create albums with so much care and thought into our track listing for no reason." Spotify tweeted back saying, "Anything for you," and removed the feature, a long bugbear for artists. Premium subscribers can now listen to in the order that the artist had intended, while those on the free plan will have to put up with the platform's shuffle feature for a little longer. In other celeb news, you may have heard Britney Spears is now free of legal conservatorship we told you about previously. It means that she was treated like a child for over a decade, unable to make medical decisions, sign her contracts, and spend her own money. It took the mammoth power of millions of fans, and Spears herself had to resort to desperate measures to sneak messages out about the conditions she was living under and regaining her freedom. Over 1 million other Americans live under conservatorships aren't so lucky, and the spotlight has turned to the abuses of this incredibly restricted form of guardianship. Last week, we reported that the next global climate conference, COP27, would head to Africa for the first time in 2022. We were wrong. Durban hosted COP17 in 2011. We apologize for the error. Today's wrap was sponsored by King Price Insurance. To advertise with us, mail info@explain.co.za for a quote.
We hope you enjoyed this news summary. Go to explain.co.za to subscribe for more.